What's up with it? What's up with that? What it is? What it do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's up with that?
Booty.
Yeah. Yours. Yeah.
My booty?
Yeah. I'm really curious how you fitted all them jeans.
I call it the tuck and roll.
So recently I shot something for a thing that I can't talk about, that thing in question, but it was a test for that thing, which of course I can't talk about the thing. Did that make sense?
I wasn't paying attention.
But I had a lot of fun doing it and thought that what we came up with was an interesting thing to take a look at, and that's these two shots here. First, this extreme close-up on the eye, and second, this tight interior box type shot. So, let's do it. So first we have this box type shot. All of this was zero budget too. So I was making it work with whatever I could just find lying around the studio. And here's what I came up with. This monstrosity. Looks like a crazy mess, but it worked great. What I was trying to create was this spot that my actor could fit into that felt like this very closed in dark box of some kind. And I wanted to be able to control how and where my light was hitting and position my camera and actor where I needed to. So it was about creating a very confined space that had room to work. My first idea, and something that would have been a lot easier to work with, was cardboard. But I didn't have black spray paint and didn't want to go out and buy that because, like I said, whatever we had around the studio. So I kept looking and I found this weird cushiony stuff that we have that I don't remember where it came from or what we used it for, but you know, there it is. I was able to hang this from a few stands using a few clamps and shaped it how I wanted to, which was just a slightly rounded shape, so I have that back and then it's curving toward the camera. Also in this shot, I wanted a small strip of light that would be hitting my actor that would be coming from something that we would put in later. And since this is soft material, it was easy enough to cut out this small slit, which would have been the exact same if it were cardboard, except the cardboard would have cut a lot easier. But now with that cut, I can set up my light, and I'm using the Aperture 300D here, but you can use just about anything for this. But now I can have my talent stand inside this insanity, and I can raise and lower my light to get it on her eyes where I want it to be. Problem now is the light is too harsh and it's just gonna blind them to dead. So I'll diffuse this, and because I'm lazy and we're not spending money, I just grabbed one of my favorite pieces of diffusion, which is this shower curtain. We've shown it on the show before. I'm just gonna clamp it on here, and there we go. And it's much more pleasing and still getting that same effect. Now I also wanted a slight bit of light leaking in to catch a bit of detail on the background. I tried a few things, but the thing that ended up working out the best was just leaving the overhead lights in the room on. That let in just a little bit of bluish light leak, which was exactly what I was wanting. Again, sometimes the best solution is the simplest one. So I tossed in my Armoran MW with a red gel wrapped around it, and I don't have a lot of space to work with, which is why a tiny light like this is going to be a must. Of course, you don't need this extra red light. It's just something I was looking for stylistically. But now we have our setup, and after that, it's just a matter of getting my actor in and positioning them how I wanted. And for this, I used a 16mm Rokinon lens. I do wish I had something a little wider, but like I said, I was just going with what I had. So I brought my talent as close to the camera as I possibly could and had the lens pretty much right up against the wall that I built there. So in the end, we have this tight, claustrophobic set. This could double as an interior helmet setup like Iron Man or anything else where the actor's head is supposed to be in a confined space. And say we didn't want to make this a helmet since the shot is locked down, we could easily grab a texture of some kind like this and composite that into the shot to change the look of the wall. Since it's all very dark around our talent, it's easy enough to work with a different look subtly. But now we can drop in whatever we want in front of our actor's eyes, so we can either leave that cutout area as is or composite in whatever makes sense for the scene we are trying to accomplish. Like an opening of some kind of helmet, a screen of some kind, and so on. Or don't cut an opening at all and make this look more of a squared off enclosing that's more wooden, and we have our talent in a coffin. Point, as always, is this is an idea that can go a ton of different directions with very simple changes. But now we're gonna take a quick break and then film eyeballs up close.
The use of domain.com is imperative to one's mental and physical health. Slide. Here is your brain. It's gross. Slide. Here is your brain on domain.com, because you realize domain has all your website needs, including .com and .net domain names and an intuitive website builder. It's blown. Your mind is blown. Slide. This is also your brain on domain.com, realizing that it's reliable, affordable, and has all the tools that you need to build a website to share your ideas to the world. Your cerebral cortex slips calmly into a euphoric state of ease. Slide. This is a baby goat in a t-shirt. Slide. No domain extension will help tell your story like a .com or .net domain name. And if you want to brand yourself online, Domain has over 300 domain extensions to fit your needs from .club to .space. Slide. This is your brain when you use the coupon code FilmRiot at checkout to save 15% off domain names, web hosting, and email. You rich bitch. Slide. And finally, this is your brain when you don't use domain.com.
A shot like this one usually requires some specialty gear like a macro lens, but again, I'm only using what we had around the studio, and since we don't have a macro lens, I'm just using that same 16mm lens and getting as close as I can while staying in focus. I lucked out with two things. First, the Rokinon's minimal focal distance is very freaking close, and my final output will be 1920 by 800, so I can shoot 4K and zoom in a lot in post. So I have my light with plenty of shower curtain diffusion on it because shower curtains. And now I'm gonna get as close as I can and position my talent's head and camera until we aren't getting any shadows from the camera on her. This took a bit of work to get right. I don't want it to feel like her face is angled away at all, and I was looking for the light to land in a way that gave us the most depth and a contrasty, moody look without having off-putting shapes. And that depth is why I'm using a wide angle and getting very close as well. You could, of course, back up and use a long lens and have less issues with shadows, but I wanted this to feel like we were feeling her thoughts. We were right there with her, or we are her. With a long lens, it feels like we're spying, watching from a distance, passive instead of active. And that just wasn't what I was going for. So the more difficult super close with a wide angle was the way to go. It just brought everything to life in a much better way that was more in line with the feel that I wanted. But we aren't finished yet. Again, we don't have the proper tools to pull this off the way that I have in my head, so we're gonna have to bend things to become that final creative vision that we want, which means it's time to jump into post. And finishing this thing is pretty simple. First, right on the footage, we're gonna throw on the look that we want, getting the general grade in a good place. And yes, I'm doing this in After Effects, but you can do the exact same thing in the exact same way right inside of Adobe Premiere, or pretty much any editor. But again, we shot 4K, and this is a 1920 by 800 comp, so I can zoom in very close to get the shot looking how I want, but also right on my footage, I'm gonna push the sharpening in a bit to get it to pop a lot more. But the eye itself isn't far enough, so I'm gonna create an adjustment layer and mask around the eye, then feather like crazy. Of course, the eye in my shot doesn't really move very much, so I only had to keyframe a few things to follow those movements, and I was good to go. But now on this adjustment layer, we're gonna sharpen even more. Then I'm gonna add an unsharpened mask. This gives it more of a tight, detailed sort of sharpening. And now we are getting more detail in the iris, but we have also pulled out a lot of noise. So next up, we added denoiser, which you can use whichever one you prefer. I'm using Neat Video, but once we drop that on, we have all that detail without the noise. So my final thing to do is to add curves and brighten up the image a little bit so our eye is pulled right to where we want it to be in the image, and there we go. I also didn't want that obvious eye light for my shot because of what mine was, so we just painted that out, but we've shown how to do similar things on the show before, so I'll spare you that. But now we have that tight claustrophobic shot and an extreme close-up or ECU on an eye. And really the main point I'm trying to make here is that there's always a way that you can get your idea done. Of course, I have a lot of gear here at the studio, but you could have substituted anything that I used for something cheaper and accomplish really the exact same end result. It's all about getting creative with what you have to realize your end creative goal. So give that a shot and check out the notes below for some suggested episodes and links to connect with us online, and I'll see you next week when the fly on my screen looks real.